Okay, so I decided to do this talk a couple hours ago when we were at the entrance. So this is actually like a talk I gave at the Nordic Game Jam this year. So it's a bit unrehearsed and stuff, but here we go. My name is Emil, and that's a photo of me. Online I usually go by the nickname of Angry Ant, because I'm a game developer specializing in AI, and I work at Unity. I started 1 month before Joe, and I'm leaving 1st of July, so he's gonna beat me in the end probably. But, before working with Unity, I started with the engine as a user of it probably in 2008. Before that, I used Grinding 1 and Unreal Engine 3. In my spare time, I do some projects such as Path. That was a pathfinding solution I did before we integrated pathfinding in Unity. It's actually open source now, so you can just like go on GitHub and grab it if you have some needs for other pathfinding than what we have built in. Then I also do a tool called Behave, which is like a behavioral logic thing. Yes. And that's my website, where I have like some tips and tricks. So if you're looking for some fancy hacks or whatever, I have some stuff there. Anyway, let's talk some goals. So the core goal of working together is you minimize the number of people writing to the same lessons. And at the same time, you want to have your work usable by others as soon as possible. Let's talk prefabs. So I bet most of you guys have used prefabs because you should, really. And the way that if you want to work together in a group, I really recommend working with prefabs is to build them early, and then you test them in some dedicated test environments. So like you build a door and a gun, and that's your test scene, and then you can like iterate on that stuff. But as soon as you have like the basic, like a door is just a box thingy that opens, and there we go. Ship it initially just off to the other guys so they can start building scenes with it, and you can continue iterating on it, because the other designers or whatever don't have to actually modify that prefab. They can just add that prefab in, and then you upgrade it, and they'll just get the changes as that prefab is updated. So you have that prefab consumer relationship, producer consumer setup. Okay, so very short talk about rapid game development. If you're very interested in rapid game development, I did a talk about that last year at our Unite Asia thing. And there's a video, if you're like really bored, there's a video of that talk on my website. Anyway, just shortly going over that. The goal is to be always shippable, as last presenter mentioned. I mean, it's just have something fun in there, and then make sure that we have an experience and you can go with, and then continuously upgrade that as you progress through the production. So concretely, since Unity is a component-based system, you want to work with very lean components that do just a specific thing, so you can very easily like say you have like some sort of a soldier type, so you probably have a component for him to move around, but then you could easily just fall into the trap of making the soldier component that you drop onto this magical game object, and it animates him and it makes him shoot and walk around and stuff. But if you split things up into these lean entities, not only are they easier to work with in the whole, like only one person produces and others consume, but also you get added opportunities to later on go, well, actually I also want another kind of thing that walks around, so I could just take this one thing that makes things walk and apply that later. So try and split things out. You get more Lego bricks to work with, which is always fun. Yes, I try and always go for some sort of, I call it a consideration applications, but there's probably a proper name for it. But For instance, in the case of movement of something, I like to have a component that moves an object or animates it based on some sort of sorry, I'm just gonna close these guys down. Okay.
They're still dancing.
They're still. Anywho, you have this abstract notion of something that moves, and then I like to take the part that considers itself with how or why to move, have that be a separate thing, because in that way you can, again, you get more leg breaks to work with. For instance, if you start off with a game that's initially just direct player input, going into some animated character walking around in a physics world or a navigation world or something, you can easily then later on go, actually, I have a bit more time now, so maybe I want to have a bit of an AI character in there. So you can just take the consideration part, which previously was the input managing translation module, toss that over the shoulder, replace it with some AI logic stuff or networking or whatever. And at the same time, you can also go the other way, of course, and say, I want to be able to move this other thing, which moves differently, but I don't want to rewrite my input code. So you can exchange that other bit. Yeah, the talk at Inasia has a lot more details on this. So version control. I might put this thing on there. I'm not quite sure. Right? You usually want to have pants on, so you usually want to version control under most circumstances. Anywho, always use version control whenever you can get it. Which is most of the time. Because I mean, there's this whole thing of you're not done until something is committed and pushed. So you can work very freely with the current state on your machine, and then go, I'm just gonna go wild and experiment with some crazy shit, and then if it doesn't work, I'm just gonna toss it. Or if you then at some point reach something that seems okay, this might work. I can actually might be able to have this in the final version, commit it and push it and share it with everyone else. But yeah, just for that alone, even if you work alone, which you should not in a game jam, but even like personal projects I work on in my spare time, I use version control extensively because I can just do crazy stuff, and then it doesn't work. Okay, well, commit it. So it's a very nice workflow. So then we have the team license thing, which gives you like the asset server, which is probably the simplest setup. If you're not familiar with version control at all, I would recommend working with this because it's a very simple setup and it's a nice GUI system. So yeah.
So when we build assets, we just upload them there, and the others can.
Yes, basically you connect your local project folder to a shared server for that, and then everyone in the team who has a copy of the same project will also be linked in on that.
Cool.
So and it's a very nice GUI setup, but if you're used to other version control systems, we also have support for that with you can enable .meta files somewhere in the editor settings, I believe, or project settings. It's in the edit menu, I think.
Yeah.
I personally like Git because it has this funky, cheap and easy local branching. So I sometimes, you get crazy ideas and go, okay, let's have him flying for a while, and then you start working in a branch where he flies more ridiculously by every commit, and then another branch you go, oh, maybe he was swimming instead, and then you can work on that for a bit, and then maybe toss a branch at some point or move them together, and you can do that locally if you're at the split personality, which I think most developers end up being. Anyway, short-term feature branching. If you just want to check something out and you want to store your progress in modules over a short time because you don't want to mess things up and you want to be able to be free to experiment, it's definitely worth it. And distributed version control, which Git and Mercurial and other things do, it's very easy to just share change sets between each other, so it's good fun. I think, yeah, it's in Unity Pro. We have this text-based serialization setup where you can actually merge stuff which is usually binary in Unity. So that might be worth looking into. With the caveat of if you have very big binary files, those get very big. But in the course of a 48-hour production, that seems unlikely. Unless you're really very productive, and then you should probably look into some other design approaches. Yes, and if you do use one of these distributed things, there's a lot of very nice GUI interfaces out there, which I would recommend instead of getting bogged down in some command line thing. Okay, I'll tell you. So this is a very nice low-level way of avoiding working on the same complex assets. It's basically you have some sort of token that you pass around, and whoever has the hat or the teddy or bottle cap or whatever it is now the only person who can edit this scene, make changes to it. And it's especially for scenes, because even though you can switch on text serialization for the scenes, it easily becomes very hairy to merge the stuff. I mean, you can with a very prefab-driven development process, you very much avoid having to do this, because usually the same person won't be, or multiple people won't be iterating on the same prefab. But with scenes, especially near the end of your production, it's very easy to get into this stuff where more people have to actually modify the exact scene. So having this strictly enforced teddy bear or some token you pass around is a very valuable thing to do. Yes, that was it. Yeah, splitting levels up in multiple scenes early on is also a very good idea, because I mean, even though you do the prefab setup, sometimes you need to have a lot of local scene modifications. So just early on realizing this is going to be a big scene or a big level, so let's have that level be multiple scenes so we don't run into each other at the end of it. Yeah, that's basically what I had. I suppose if we have a bit of time for questions on Unity in general or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.